It's time to turn down the noise and tune in to News You Can Use, the show that gives you a quick insight into the latest twists and turns in healthcare news, where every diagnosis comes with an order of side-splitting humor. Your hosts are Dr. Nick, a longtime host, innovator, and healthcare wizard who can prescribe a digital dose of innovation to cure even the most ailing operational inefficiencies. And Dr. Craig Joseph, the healthcare guru who can diagnose both patient and software glitches with equal precision, making sure hospitals run smoother than a well-oiled robot doc. So buckle up, because we're diving into the ER of excitement, the ICU of irrationality, and the waiting room of wacky wisdom. Now here's Dr. Nick and Dr. Craig.
Welcome to the month of February. I'm Dr. Nick.
And I'm Dr. Craig.
This week, we'll be dissecting the latest healthcare news, unraveling twists and turns, and making sense of some of the debacles.
Just remember, life's a lot like a breaking news story. Unpredictable, often absurd, and occasionally leaves you wondering if it's all just a cosmic prank.
This week, we take a look at Doximity's ChatGPT and AI detection algorithms.
And we dive into LLMs and AI implementation.
But first off this week, we have some changes at the FDA. Recently announced, and what we're being told is that the FDA has updated its approval process, mechanisms, whatever. I think the summary point that I got was it's no more 2 rigorous studies to win approval for a new drug. It's down to 1. What do you think?
Well, as we were preparing for this, we were discussing this try not to do the show before the show, but you said, boy, this reminds me of just one word, and I don't know if you think of it the same way. And I just looked at you and I said thalidomide.
Yes.
Right?
And it's not a laughing matter, to be clear, but dear Lord, that was, and that was exactly, my mind went, I mean, it was like a rubber band, snap. And I thought, maybe that's just me because I was in the UK. And I went to school with a kid that had, thalidomide as a consequence. And I saw a fair amount of it. And I thought maybe I was tilted as a result of that. But I deliberately didn't bias you, or tried not to bias you, and you just came the same way.
It was because
it's not just, that's an N of 2. That's like a whole study right there.
It was Professor Dr. Billy Joel, who I think exposed many Americans to the concept of thalidomide by mentioning it in "We Didn't Start the Fire," which I will sing if I'm forced to.
You are being forced to, because I enjoyed it so much the first time.
Children of thalidomide.
Oh my God, please.
And then there's more. I actually pulled up the words if you want me to do the whole thing.
No, it's okay. We don't need karaoke.
Space Monkey Mafia, Hula Hoops, Castro, Edsel is a no-go. I'll stop it there.
God.
But for those who don't know who Professor Dr. Billy Joel is, he's a famous pop singer.
Yes, he was.
And writer and songwriter. And thalidomide happened. Well, you could probably tell, you were there to kind of on site, but essentially a medication that caused problems for pregnant women for their fetuses.
Right.
It wasn't found out. It took, went into be commercially available. Right.
Yep.
And as a consequence of that, the U.S. authorities said, "Hey, we don't want that," and tightened up the requirements for new medication to be even more, rigorous in terms of testing.
And to be clear, this is tightening up the regulations that had already, in this particular instance, and I think it was down to an individual at the top of. I'm not sure what the organizations were, whether it was the FDA or whatever, but there was immense pressure. I mean, this is worldwide pressure to release this drug to the market. It was, I think primarily for pregnant women. I tell me if I'm
I
wrong, but it was to stop the nausea that
I think
comes.
that's exactly right. It was
Right.
an
So
antiemetic.
it was a combination of things that you go, wow, and of course then it had the catastrophic impact. And what was interesting, as I recall, because I've read about this a number of times, was that the individual, I don't know who it was concerned about the safety data in the US. And despite the approvals and this immense pressure, resisted it. But there were a few cases because they allowed for, what still goes on to this day, which is investigational trials where, individual physicians can say, hey, I'm going to test this. It's not on the books for treat, it's off label, I think is, one of the mechanisms of, I don't want to say bypassing. I mean, there are legitimate use cases. Botox is one of them, albeit, whether you consider that legitimate or not. But I mean, it's used for other things and it's not on the label for. Um, and as a result, there were a few. I don't know, but it was a handful compared to the just immense damage that was caused. And yet, despite the fact that that happened, they wanted to strengthen it further. And that was exactly the regulations that we got and have been working to. And now we're saying, no, everything's so much better. We can predict this stuff. I'm not convinced. I'm pretty sure you're not, just based on the fact that we both snap back to the same thing, right?
This is there's no good answer to this problem. And it's kind of just like, hey, which problem do you want? Do you want good, safe, effective drugs held off the market for many years while we study to make sure and make sure again and make sure a third time? Or do you want the problem of having some drugs that did have a study that seems safe and then go out in the general market and then we find out problems when they get used by a lot more people? There's a somewhere in between is the right answer, of
Right.
course. And I
Yeah, I
think
don't know. An n of 2 to an n of 1 is somewhere in between, is my view. I mean, I don't know, but I think that's exactly right. As always in medicine, it's gray, not black or white, typically. And there is some balance, but I don't think that this is found. It's very worrying. And maybe that's just history. It's like my parents who went through, shortages and war rationing and everything, and that made them the people that they are. And they looked at the waste from my generation, and I'm not even trotting after some people since. So is it an age related thing? Are we old timers and sitting in our chairs rocking away?
yeah, again, it relaxing some of these very rigorous requirements, some of the most rigorous in the world for certain types of drugs has already been
Right.
done. Right.
That's exactly right for the rare diseases. Yeah.
Rare diseases or some
Or
horrible
things
cancers
that are completely untreatable and
exactly. Hey, if
yeah.
we don't do anything, you're going to die. So we might as well
Yeah.
try these meds.
Right.
And if they have side effects, they have side effects. Everyone's going in with their eyes open. We've done that. And
we've had some pretty bad consequences, I think. My recollection from some of those therapies that were tried, they were gene related. There was that awful case of the relatively young guy that died as a consequence. He ended up in complete catastrophe. I can't even remember the details, but but no choice, no problem in some instances, maybe.
Yeah. Again, you're getting to the N of 1 with one patient and their willingness to move forward with treatments that are not proven to be effective or safe, and that's fine. But yeah, we're moving towards less charted territory. I was about to say uncharted. I'll say less charted.
Yeah.
Territory. Of note, though, there are certainly still some medications and therapies that the FDA seems to not apply this to.
Right, that was the that was the other thing. I mean, we've seen
vaccines.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes, that's right. Moderna's and the messenger RNA that basically saved our bacon. Let's be clear.
Yep. But we're
Yeah.
not interested in moving forward. Although, again, FDA backtracked. yeah, so it's perfectly cloudy. I think that's what we should come to the conclusion
Oh,
of.
I'm back in the UK. Perfectly cloudy. Yes.
Perfectly cloudy.
I don't think I ever heard that on the weather report, but I'm sure if they'd heard it, they would have used it. All right. So moving on. Doximity's Chat GPT. So Doximity has their own version of Chat GPT. You and I have talked about this before. They're not the only ones. There's obviously the opportunity to use this, and Open Evidence has
Open
their own.
evidence.
And I found I found both to be useful. Any thoughts on that particular piece that we saw?
Well, it's like anything. Most doctors now work for large conglomerations. They control their IT, and some of these IT systems, like Doximity and like Open Evidence, are saying, "Hey, we will for free. You can just turn on the microphone on your phone, and we'll record the conversation in the clinic and create an office." Create a progress note for you and maybe suggest some orders for you and do some other things. And that's great. But now you're running into some compliance and regulatory rules. And so there's certainly seen articles where people have said, well, I had all these progress notes and all these very complicated surgeries for this patient who I didn't know very well. And so I copied all of that into to Doximity or to Open Evidence and had the large language model,
Yep.
yeah, and summarize it for me. And couple problems, right? One is some of these tools, none of these tools are foolproof, right? And so they absolutely can, even though it's much better than it was a year ago, they can hallucinate. They can tell you that the patient has this problem that was never identified anywhere. So that can happen. Getting much better, but still can happen. And two, hey, if you're copying information out of the patient's legal medical record and putting it into a third-party system that hasn't dotted the I's and crossed the T's with respect to security and compliance, you're running a big risk. And I guess it's one thing if you're a small office and those are risks that you're willing to take. But it's another thing if you work for some huge multi-state organization. And so I don't know what the right answer is. I think what's going to happen is we're going to see more and more of these tools being incorporated into the electronic health record. So it'll all, at least from the user's perspective, it'll all be right there for you.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we need.
But that's still not solving the problem of the errors and the fact that they're highly plausible errors.
Correct.
Because that's how they're designed to be presented. It's designed to be, that makes sense. And to be clear, I don't think the case is settled, at least not based on the data that I see online, in terms of the savings. Because the review time, if you talk to folks that use some of these tools, it's not quite a straightforward, cut and dried, oh yeah, this saved me all this time, I'm getting home early, because I'm not seeing that and I'm not hearing that. We do need studies, we're just not seeing many of them.
Well, I think they're happening. And there's more than just time savings, of course, right? So there's
right. That's absolutely.
Yeah. So if I feel better about the time that I'm spending, and it feels less like monkey work and more like actual spending time with the patient, because the system has summarized a bunch of points to me, and now I can go to the patient and say, okay, so it looks like these things happened. Is this your understanding? Yeah. And let's dig in deeper. And that's just higher quality time for me to spend than me doing the actual searching through the record and trying to find that one progress note. If the patient says I had brain surgery, but I can't find it, that's a waste. Yeah.
But I actually thought you were going somewhere else, and I agree. Even if it is costing you time and you've got to check it, and I think that validation, your process, I'd say you should patent it, but I'm being flippant here. But I think you're right. Is doing it in conjunction, because there's no better validation than the patient, because they tend to know. I know that's not always true, at least in my experience. They don't always know, but they're a good validator because they didn't create the note and so forth. But the fact that you're focusing on them as opposed to the technology, I think that's it's hard to quantify that, because that is huge value, at least for the patients, and I think for the physicians as well. So, point well taken.
Yeah, and let me just say again, it's only fair to compare when we're doing these studies that you're asking for and which are being done. It's not fair to compare to perfection. It's best to compare to what we would have gotten
Right.
the standard way, right? So the standard way is you're sick in a hospital bed, and I'm asking you a ton of questions about what happened 15 years ago, potentially. Right. And then your answers I'm recording as kind of doctrine because that's what you told me.
Can I just ask you to apply that to drug trials as well? So we should be comparing the latest released drug against the one that's currently in use that works really effectively, as opposed to going against no therapy or therapy that is so old that, we've gotten a lot. I'm just saying that's good general advice.
I could not agree more. But this is part of the problem. We've talked about this before on other shows, where you're looking at a car that drives itself and comparing it to perfection, versus comparing it to the average driver. Which is a better comparison.
There is no such thing. Everybody is above average. We know this based on surveys.
It depends on what state you live in. But So I think that's fair. You just got to, again, compare to what the patient was going to tell me or what I was going to find by looking through this chart. Compare that. So if there's a chance I could make a mistake. There's a chance the patient could make a mistake. There's a chance that the LLM can make a mistake.
Right. All right. So moving on, still in the same zone. I thought this AI detection study was interesting, albeit it didn't come out with what I would call good news. The echo stethoscope, which just for the purposes of everybody, declaring. So I did receive one of these. I enjoyed using it to validate it. I shared it with colleagues, friends. Essentially, this was a study out of the UK, randomized. I wasn't too excited about the randomization. I think it was difficult to sort of get into the detail, but it basically showed, and this device amplifies, which I got to say that was a huge positive for me, because I've always had trouble hearing with those damn stethoscopes, and that was when my hearing was, I think, better, but. It also tied together, so it will give you a EKG readout, and it can tie to your phone and does an analysis. It can do an audio and EKG analysis, and they were testing to see if it improved detection rates for heart failure, atrial fibrillation, even valvular heart disease. And ultimately, what they showed was. It didn't. They couldn't demonstrate a decent validation of this as a value proposition. And what they saw, and I've got to say this was my experience as I shared the device, because I did, was a dropping off of the use. And in their particular instance, this was one of my criticisms of the study. I think this was a shared device. And I'm just going to say, not great. I don't know that each individual physician got one, so it wasn't necessarily. But there's also a whole process, because you've got to then, it's got to be tied. You don't just slap it on and listen. So they saw the decline. So not quite the value proposition that, quite honestly, you can see if you go listen. And anybody that's not a cardiologist, and maybe for even a few of those, it can detect things that we maybe might miss because it's got improved capabilities. But I think disappointing for them. But the jury's still out, I think, because there was another study that seemed to demonstrate otherwise. Any thoughts?
Well, I'm looking at the study, and this was done between October of 2023 and May of 2024. So 500 years ago. This was done. relatively speaking, in terms of the
Dog ears,
technology's
that is,
advancement. Yeah, as I'm reading through, I've never used one of these things. It seems to me it's kind of going along the lines of the physical exam, which is also
Whoa,
yeah,
steady
I know.
on, steady on. Are
I
you
opened it up. I'm ready to go there. Why are we? So here
Why
I'm
are
being
we still
provocative.
doing it? Oh my God!
Why are we
Sacrilege!
Why are we talking about heart sounds, Dr. Nick, when we could be just sticking a ultrasound probe on your chest, squishing it around for 30 seconds?
Oh, says the technician right there.
I mean, we're not there, but
we are pretty much. Let's
we're
be
getting
clear.
close to the thing kind of telling you, much like for those of us who have done, Face ID with our phone, and it says move it to the left, move your face to the right,
Yeah.
up, down. Okay, you can imagine. You don't have to imagine; it happens now. Putting a probe with someone with very little training, move it up, move it right, move it down, move it.
Yep.
All right, and then it's interpreting for you, the ejection fraction and everything else, and the it's kind of quaint to think about the heart sounds. Now, again, I'm pushing the bound. I don't need no cardiologists need to attack me. I'm
well,
just saying.
To be clear, Dr. Topol, who is a cardiologist, is not, because he has said that the day of the stethoscope is dead, I think. And I know a few young physicians who would be 100% in agreement, especially if they could carry around a butterfly for themselves, because they use it exactly as you describe. And I'm so envious, because if I had one of those things, I would be doing that all over the place. I mean, I'd be doing it on the animals in my house, the whole bit. I mean,
on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think A, it's from a few years ago, and B, the future is not the stethoscope. The future is the ultrasound probe that I can just push around. And again, I don't need the high quality of a real echocardiogram. Right? That, sure, I would have better technology with trained experts who know what they're doing. But I just need to know, hey, you're just here. And instead of me trying to figure out what that systolic sounds means, if I can get some technology just to tell me, that'd be better, faster.
Yeah, no, it's fair comment. I guess I'm bristling because I got to say it's one of the privileges. I'll be frank. It's a privilege to be allowed to touch and be that close to a patient. It's a level of trust, and it delivers something more than just the diagnosis. It's that connection. Holding a hand of a patient, it's and I feel like that might all disappear with this, but oh well. All right, so running out of time, I did want to get to Paris because that was important. I happened to stop into a cafe and observed. I mean, this started out because I noticed. I mean, it was around tipping originally, but it really sort of struck me that this Paris cafe was running just delightfully with none of the incentives. And my sense of this was, why can't we have medicine more like that Paris cafe? None of this incentive. I mean, I can't tell you. I am fed up of text messages, post everything I go and see, medical or otherwise. Oh, could you give us a ranking? This is all about. It just seems like we've gone completely overboard on this.
Well, I'm certainly not going to disagree. I think one of your points was that when you treat professionals as if they're high school students, then they're going to start acting like high school students, and right. I mean that in the best way. And so,
no, you don't.
you get what you pay for, Dr. Yep. Nick, and your ideas are make a lot of sense. Again, back when I started, even when I started practice, not that long ago, All right. It was long ago, but not 150 years ago.
You keep telling
Most
yourself that.
most residents who are leaving practice were going to go open up their own office or
Right.
join with one or two other doctors.
Yeah.
And now that's almost unheard of. And this is part of the problem, that we have corporate overlords. I understand. I work for a big company as well, and they have to make rules. And some of the rules make sense, and some of the rules don't make sense. But they're all enforced equally.
Yeah, it's for me. It boils down to the fact, or at least I think partially boils down to the fact that there is always a bad apple. There just always seems to be people that will push the boat out, try and squeeze some, and based on that, there's a reaction, and it tends to be an overreaction, and then you get this ping pong effect. And we have the same thing, so we go chasing after people that are absolutely ripping off the system on both sides of this equation. And, we all pay for that with all of this overhead that just really frustrates me. But, well, yeah, anyway. Well, but Paris was nice. By the way, it was super warm, even though it was like in the 40s, but that was because of where I was coming from. So it was all good. But unfortunately, we find ourselves at the end of yet another episode, exploring healthcare's mysteries before they become your emergencies. Until next time, I'm Dr. Nick.
And I'm Dr. Craig.